Kia ora everyone. Hey, a huge welcome. There's lots of faces that are new to me, so it's so great to have you here. If I don't already know you, my name's Anna, and it's such a privilege to speak tonight, and it's such a privilege to come to church and to this to be our community. I know I've said it before, but literally every time it's communion and everyone walks up, I'm just like, I love that person, and I get so distracted because I just love everyone here so much. So welcome. If you're new, welcome to a community that really, really loves each other and loves spending time together. We are in a series in James. That's a book in the Bible near the end of the New Testament where James is the half-brother of Jesus. And this is one of like the first books that was written in the New Testament. And it's really like, I read somewhere this week, it's like a Old Testament kind of style, like dressed up in New Testament clothes. Like it's really teaches how to pursue holiness, and it gives really direct instructions in what to do. Like it doesn't like cut any corners or do any tricks. Like it's really much, that doesn't really make sense. It's very much straight up the guts. And at the moment, we're in this little kind of sub-series. This is the second to last week of James. And in this little sub-series, it's all about this kingdom that's coming. It's all about looking forward at this kingdom that's coming and letting that kind of shape the way that we live here now. So I think it was 2 weeks ago, Matt Swank shared about how in light of this kingdom to come, that changes the decisions we make here. He talked about having a kingdom perspective and a kingdom agenda, and how we think that we're in control of our lives, and then suddenly something happens and we realize actually God is just all over everything, and we need to have perspective of the kingdom to come rather than here on earth. Then last week, Matt Rowan shared about money and how we need to make financial decisions based on this kingdom to come rather than focusing on the here and now. That doesn't really count for much, but focusing on the kingdom to come. And when I'm talking about this kingdom to come, I'm talking about that, or James is talking about, a place where anyone who believes in Jesus is going to spend eternity in. So this place that's like God's house that lasts forever, for thousands upon thousands of years. And it's where followers of Jesus will spend their life. And it's that's what this is all about. And these 3 kind of weeks, the 2 weeks that have already been in this week, is focused all around that. So let's jump into it. So tonight, the topic, that if you wanted to call it a topic, was what happens when things go wrong? How do we deal with the now? How do we deal with the pain and suffering that exists in this world with this perspective of a kingdom to come? So flip to James chapter 5, and we're going to start at verse 7 and read down to verse 12. So, be patient, therefore, brothers, until the coming of the Lord. See how the farmer waits for the precious fruit of the earth, being patient about it until it receives the early and the late rains. You also be patient. Establish your hearts, for the coming of the Lord is at hand. Do not grumble against one another, brothers, so that you may not be judged. Behold, the judge is standing at the door. As an example of suffering and patience, brothers, take the prophets who spoke in the name of the Lord. Behold, we consider those blessed who remain steadfast. You have heard of the steadfastness of Job, and you've seen the purpose of the Lord, how the Lord is compassionate and merciful. But above all, my brothers, do not swear either by heaven or by earth or by any other oath, but let your yes be yes and your no be no, so that you may not fall under condemnation. Awesome, let's pray. Lord, I thank you that your word teaches to pain and teaches to suffering. And Lord, I pray that anyone who's in this room tonight who's immediately thinking, oh man, like this is exactly what I'm in at the moment, Lord, will you speak to that person? Will you speak either through my words or just through your Holy Spirit to them, Lord? Will they know your peace? And Lord, will we be able to understand your heart for us as we go through this, your heart for each and every one of us as we are here awaiting this kingdom to come. Lord, will you speak to us tonight? Amen. So pretty much from those verses, the plan for tonight is I'm going to share a bit about the passage, and then my dear friend Rudy, he's going to jump up and he's going to share a bit about his story, which is going to be awesome. I love hearing from different people in the community. And then we'll kind of see where we go from there with like a response or something like that. So that's kind of the plan. So with this passage, there's kind of three bits that you can chunk into straight away. It's look forward, there's something to come. Look back to help us gain perspective. And right now, don't get all grumbled. Like, just stay relaxed. And with look forward, it starts off with, in verse 7, it says, "Be patient, therefore, brothers, until the coming of the Lord. See how the farmer waits for the precious fruits of the earth, being patient about it until it receives the early and the late rains. You also be patient. Establish your hearts, for the coming of the Lord is at hand." Don't you find that whenever you're told to be patient, you're just so not patient, especially when you know there's something coming? So here he's saying, be patient, there's something coming. And I was thinking, man, I know that all too well with flat dinners. Who has flat dinners? Who's part of a flat where they all rotate cooking? That is just the best time of life. Don't hold on to that. But I was thinking, man, I was the worst flatmate. I would get home, and as soon as I'd walk through the door, my brain would just be like, I'm ready for food. And I would just like go to the kitchen and be like, hey, so we having dinner tonight? And they're like, yep, cool, I'm making it. And you're like, oh, cool. How long do you think it will be? And as soon as they've said there's going to be a dinner, you're like, I'm starving. If they said, oh no, we're not having dinner tonight, I didn't make you any, you would probably actually be fine. I'd just be like, oh, okay, and tell my stomach to stop grumbling. But instead, I'm that flatmate that's like, do you want me to cook the rice? Do you want me to cut the veggies? What can I do? Warm the plates? And they're like, will you go away? And it's interesting how when we're told something's coming, we can lose our patience. But if we don't know what's coming, then sometimes we just ride it out and we don't get too agitated. And this thing that's coming is the coming of the Lord. So James is saying, be patient. There's something coming, and the thing that's coming is really, really good. So just wait in it, endure it. And when he means this coming of the Lord, he means that right here on earth, what's happening, that's not going to last forever. This time that we're here on earth, the things that are painful, the suffering that happens, just the day-to-day things of this earth, this doesn't last forever. And he's saying, be patient. All of that changes when we're in heaven and when we're in this next kingdom, until the coming of the Lord, when there's this kingdom of Jesus where none of that exists. So if you think in the light of suffering, those things that are painful, those things that hurt, we're told in the Word of God, we're told in the Bible that this, until the coming of the Lord, changes it all. It's totally different. It says in 1 Corinthians 2:9, but as it is written, what no eye has seen, nor ear has heard, nor the heart of man imagined, what God has prepared for those who love him. He's talking about this kingdom to come. Then in Revelation 21:4, he says, he will wipe away every tear from their eyes, and death shall be no more, neither shall there be mourning, nor crying, nor pain anymore, for the former things have passed away. He's saying, be patient and look at what is to come. He's saying, look forward to something which is coming, which is going to blow your mind. This suffering is just for now. It won't last for you forever. Keep your eyes fixed on what's to come. And then he says, look back. He says, as an example of, this is in verse 10, as an example of suffering and patience, brothers, take the prophets who spoke in the name of the Lord. Behold, we consider those blessed who remain steadfast. You have heard of the steadfastness of Job, and you've seen the purpose of the Lord, how the Lord is compassionate and merciful. he then goes on to say, there's people that have done this. There's people who we can follow in their footsteps. There's people who we can look to and be encouraged. And you'll see as you read through the word, like so many people had rough times. So many people endured suffering. So many people endured persecution for being a Christian. So many people endured sickness. There's all of these different things that happened. And James is saying, look back at these people. You have the privilege of seeing what happened, that there was an end to it, that they're still not there suffering. There's an end to it, and they're with the Lord. I heard Francis Chan on a little video speak about how he kind of overwhelmed me with this idea of how long eternity is. That eternity is thousands upon thousands upon thousands upon thousands, like so many years long. And this time on earth, this time that all of those prophets suffered, is like a blink compared to the eternity that they get to spend with Jesus. And as I was thinking about what Francis Chan had said about that was a while ago, I was like, man, the maths in me wants to find like a graph to explain that. I did a maths degree at uni, and you would never guess it. I was so bad at it, and I have never used it, so I don't recommend, but it was pretty cool. So I was trying to find this graph for eternity, and this is the only thing that I came up with. Live for the line, not for the dot. How good's that, right? You can't really say that without an American accent. But this idea that your life is that dot, and eternity just like goes forever. And we can look at these prophets' lives. We can look back at them and say, man, that's what they had in mind. That's how they could endure that, because they were living for the line and not for the dot. I read a quote from a preacher who is called Charles Spurgeon, and he's from the 1800s, so he's from a long time ago, and he said this. It took me ages to get my head around this, so I'll say it slowly. If a person were to attack me with a knife, I would resist him with all my strength and count it a tragedy if they succeeded. Yet if a surgeon comes to me with a knife, I welcome both him and the knife. Let him cut me open, even wider than the knife attacker, because I know his purpose is good and necessary. The prophets, us, we know the end that's intended. We know that there is a coming of the Lord. We know that there's a kingdom to come. So we have a different way of looking at it. We can look at it with the end in mind. Just like it was worth it for all of those prophets, I bet if we could ask any of them, it's the same worth it for us. Then the third bit in the middle kind of the passage, it says, do not grumble against one another, brothers, so that you may not be judged. Behold, the judge is standing at the door. We can look forward, we can look at what's coming, eternity. We can look back at these prophets who endured it. And then, but what do we do now? Because it's great looking both ways and saying, well, that's great, but that still means that it's really hard, right? That still means that you're you're still feeling that pain. You're still feeling, you can't just shake it off and to say to someone when they're suffering, like, be a bit more like Job, eh? Like, come on. That's not how it works. But what Jesus does say, as he says, or James does say, is don't grumble against one another. Stay the same. This is something that in that one another's, when things are going wrong, don't let that turn into a grumbling with each other. Instead, come underneath each other and help and support and point each other to the Lord. That's his character, right? He's not saying you have a free pass to be irritable, or you have a free pass to have a low tolerance for other people when things are going wrong. He's saying, no, it's okay. Come together one another and don't grumble. That's just a total waste of time. And I think that in all of this, we can think, man, this is like great theoretically. I can look forward to eternity. I can look back at what others have done, but I'm still kind of stuck. I don't really know what to do. I don't know how this comes into my life. I don't know how to actually practice this out. And as I was thinking about it in my own life, I was thinking, man, in all of these times where I've felt pain, not only have I been able to hear what to do, but God's totally met me in that pain. And I think it's no mistake that in this year, or last week actually, I was talking to my friend Rudy, and he was telling me about his year. And as I was kind of thinking about this passage and preparing for it, I thought, man, God has just totally taken what he's told us in this message, in this passage, what he's told us, and he's like he shows us that he goes so much further than that and meets us in it. So we have such a privilege tonight that Rudy is going to jump up and he is going to share about his year this year. And as he's sharing, I encourage you to really lean into when he talks about what he's learned from it, because that's what we can all go with. And I think there's real power in him testifying what his years looked like, but then actually what he's learned from it. Cool? Can we give a big clap for Rudy?
Hello. I'm just too nervous. My name is Rudy. Just as just a short testimony of mine from the beginning of this year. For the past few months, it's been a rough ride, but God's always been there, helping me out. So my testimony's got 4 parts. The first one is the problem. Second one is the present day. Third one is the course. And the last one is God's work. So the problem was this. On the 31st of January this year, I lost my dad. And I couldn't go back to India because of travel restrictions. And honestly, I never saw that coming at all. It broke me down. It broke me down so bad. It was so crucial. It was a crucial time for me because my visa was getting expired in a month as well. And I lost my dad. My visa was getting expired in a month. And I was running short of time to get all my documents sorted for my visa in the process of grieving for my dad's death. And it was so crucial that I was trying to process my dad's death. I was actually in the process of grieving. And I was not ready to get back to work immediately. And I had to go back to work after a week, and every day I was at home, I was actually losing a day for me to get my visa documents sorted out. Because the visa that I was applying for is an employer-assisted visa, and I had to get documents from my employer to submit to the Immigration of New Zealand. And by the time I managed to get I went back to work after a week, and then I managed to get all the documents sorted. And by the time I applied for my visa, it was just 2 days left on my visa to expire, and I got my documents sorted out. And just before the day of expiry, I applied for my visa. So I was home for 6 weeks with an interim visa. That didn't give me any right to work in New Zealand. So basically all my savings that I had was getting exhausted, and I was not working. I was just home, and I was trying to process my dad's death. So this is the problem. In the present day, I am so grateful and thankful to God that I got my visa granted on the 3rd of May for 3 more years. Praise the Lord. Yeah. But I'm still trying to process my dad's death, trying to go through the process of grief. I'm just trying it because it's just too scary. I'm just too scared. I don't wanna go through it. I'm just too scared to go through it. But God helped me cross one of the hurdles. And that's the present day. The course, what I went through is this. So the 6 weeks I was home was not an easy task. And every day I was just getting more and more anxious. I got nothing to do, and I applied for something. I don't know what's going to be the result. And I was just getting more anxious, and I don't know what to do. My thoughts, I don't know if you can relate to this. My thoughts were just all over the place. It was just like a nuclear chain reaction, just kept going, 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 and then it just kept going. Just took me to worst possible scenarios that can happen, and it made me even more scared. It made me even more anxious. So the hardest part that I faced was when people asked me how I was doing, I just put a smiling face on and said everything is good. But deep inside it was just so hurting. I just wanted to kneel down and say, nah, nothing is going good, please help me. It was so hard. And to add more spice to the situation, what happened was my visa application had some complications. So since it's an employer-assisted visa, my employer has to give me documents saying they failed to find any permanent resident or a citizen for the job, but just me. So the immigration case officer came back to me and said she didn't find the documents valid, and I had to get back to my employer. It was actually a hard process to go through, hard time to go through. I was just running back and forth to my employer, trying to get the documents sorted, because the employers, they don't know the seriousness of this, and but they did what they can do, and it was just, I was just being so impatient, and I was just so anxious, and there've been times I've been just kneeling down and praying, and yeah. So I managed to get my documents sorted from my employer, submitted to the Immigration New Zealand just before the deadline, just a day before the deadline. And in a week's time, my immigration case officer comes back to me and says, this doesn't seem legit. I want something that's legit, that your employer really tried hiring New Zealand people. And I don't know what to do. And I had to get back to my employer again, go back and forth, and they didn't know the seriousness of it. And I just had to be patient enough to just get my documents as soon as possible. And just the day before the deadline, I got my visa documents, and I sent it to the Immigration New Zealand, and I sent whatever that was asked for. My anxiety level was way off the gauge. It was everywhere. So this is the course. This is the problem that I was in, and and now God's work. So just a small background of me. I was a born Hindu, and I moved to New Zealand in 2016, and it's just me in New Zealand. My family members are in India. It's just me who's saved, and I got baptized in 2016 July in New Zealand, Auckland. And honestly, I thought Christians would have it all sorted. Everything would be given to them in a plate. It was so life would be so easy, but it wasn't an easy ride for me. It wasn't a smooth ride, and slowly I was starting to listen to everyone around me saying the same thing, and I was like, whoa. All right, back to the topic. And 4 days before I got my visa approved, it was a night, and I was in my bed. I was like lying down, and it was so suffocating. This feeling of anxiety was just so suffocating. I don't know if anyone could relate to this, but there's a heavy feeling in the throat that you have, that you want to break out. You feel like you're trapped inside a box. You just want to break out of the box and then just get out of this. I don't want to be contained in this small feeling, which you cannot even see. It doesn't even have a physical form, but it's just there, and you can feel it. My thoughts were just going crazy. It was around 1 o'clock in the night, and this feeling in my throat, the heavy feeling in my throat, just made me cry so bad. Like I just wanted to cry. I was crying so bad. I was just crying, and then I was just crying to myself, and I was saying, is God even real? Is he even real? Why is he being so unfair? I started to compare myself to other people who has their visa sorted, who are even non-Christians. I was getting so frustrated with God that I couldn't go back to India to send my dad home. I was not there to send my dad home. I feel like I was drowning, and I feel like I needed to breathe. I needed to come up from the water to breathe. In that particular moment, it was around 1:30 to 1:45 in the night. I just shook this feeling off my shoulder. I just literally shook the feeling off, sat down in my bed, took my phone, opened my Bible app, and I started to read the book of Job. All 42 chapters in one go. I was so desperate for a cure or for escape route. I just read all 42 chapters in one go. So I read everything that happened until chapter 37. Just if you didn't know book of Job, what happens, just a long story short, Job is this dude who is really faithful and loyal to God, and Satan and God has a meeting, and Satan says, this guy has everything, so if I hurt him, he's going to curse you. And then God says, nah, you cannot take his life, but try him. So Satan takes everything from him, his children, his wealth, and everything that he has, and he even will get disease on his body. So that is no way compared. I cannot compare myself with him, the suffering that he's gone through. So that's what happens, and then Job has few friends who talks to Job about the situation, about God, what's God planning and stuff, and then Job will still be crying and asking God for answers. That's natural. Anyone who's going through a problem would be like, God, why do you do this? God, why do you do this? Why? And I was thinking to myself, I felt like, yeah, exactly. Why is God just so unjust? Like, why does he have to do this? He might as well take his life rather than let him suffer, right? And I was seeing myself in Job's shoes. It's totally relatable. And then I turned to chapter 38, and that's where God comes and answers Job. I read easy to read version on the Bible because it's easy to understand. It starts like this in the easy to read version Bible. It goes like this. Job chapter 38. Then the Lord spoke to Job from a whirlwind and said, who is this ignorant person saying these foolish things? Prepare yourself for an attack. Get ready to answer the questions I will ask you. Where were you when I made the earth? If you are so smart, answer me. This is just the first 4 verses, and it goes on like that. God is actually talking. All these verses is what God is talking. And when I started to read these verses from chapter 38, I just felt like I was getting freed up. The feeling that I had boxed inside, I felt like I was getting fresh air. I was feeling like I was breathing. I was able to breathe properly. So after finishing this whole book, I felt the raw, direct, straightforward nature of God. And then I realized, man, he did so many things. He created basically everything that's there in this planet, outside of this planet, or whatever you call it. Everything that's there right now is what he created. And being here, I'm going and demanding for answers to someone like that. It's just so funny to even think about something like that. I'm going to someone who's done great things. Like, I cannot even understand what he's done. I'm going and demanding for answers from him is what I felt funny about myself. I felt so silly about myself. And all my problems doesn't even have a physical form. And I'm just too worried about something that's in here. Like, it doesn't even have a physical form. I couldn't even see my problem right in front of me, but I'm still worried about it. And I had few realizations at the time. They were these few realizations. God is not obligated to answer us. God is not obligated to answer us. He doesn't have to answer us. Our human minds can never comprehend his work. No matter what he does, we will never comprehend his work. He is constantly working for our betterment. Our problems in life are actually not how they appear to be. And there is always light at the end of the tunnel. God's plan for us is not to hurt us, but to shape us into a better being so we can have a prosperous future. Jeremiah 29:11. God brought us this far, not to abandon us, but to complete the work he had begun in us. That's Philippians 1:6. I honestly could see the change in me. If it was me a few years ago, and if life was just knocking me out left, right, and center, I would have honestly tapped out and given up easy. But I'm not saying I have everything sorted now. I'm not saying God's given me everything right now. God's given me $1 million, so my life is sorted. Nah, it's not that. I honestly don't know if I'm going to have any more problems in the future. I honestly don't know what's ahead of me in life. But this hope I have in Jesus, this hope, like little hope, that God's got my back. I mean, this may sound cliche, but it's the truth. God's got my back. And the next time when I go through next time I go through problems in life, this is my prayer. I just want to be the same, be patient, and I just need the wisdom to be the same when life is smooth, when life is hard, and have the wisdom to go through hardships. And I'm just thankful to a few of them in my life. This time, especially this crucial time, my life group people, who's been there as a family for me. I don't know. There's no words to thank them, honestly. Every single person in my life group been an inspiration, made me shed tears, made me lean on their shoulders when in need. And my mate Dwara, he's been there through all my life for their prayers and support, and they all were like a family to me, even though I don't have my family here, but they were like a family to me. The best thing is God orchestrated all this so well that I am placed in this church. 2 years ago I come to this church and I am placed in this life group. I got all these people around me who's going to support me. God has been strengthening them for them to be a strength for me. And I have all these people. That's me. God be the glory.
It's so encouraging to hear a story from someone, right, of God doing what he says he's going to do. And I think why I'm so rapt that Rudy shared that with us all is that he's hearing that God does this is so encouraging, and we can take his learnings into our own situations. We can take them into whatever it is that we're going through right now. That's why we gather as the church, right? So that we can see God work in each other's lives, so that we can see the miracles that God performs. We can see them like front seat and see that that's the way that God acts. That's what he does. And I bet that Rudy's life group, I bet that they would probably all say it's been such a privilege to journey with Rudy through this, because they've got to see God move like this. And I was just thinking tonight, whatever you're going through, like even if you wouldn't consider it suffering, if you just consider it kind of pain, or just a situation that you feel like you have no control over, know that the Lord promises he'll be with you. Tom said something profound on the way here. He said, in our suffering and in our hard times, God doesn't promise to resolve a hard circumstance. He doesn't promise that. But he does promise his presence with us in a hard circumstance. That's something we can rely on. In Psalm 23 it says, even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, because I know you are with me. I was thinking as we were singing before earlier tonight, I was thinking, man, all of these lyrics, there was just for a while, I know the song was called Promises, but before that, the song in that too, it was just like promise after promise after promise of us testifying, of us singing out who God is and what he does. And I was thinking, what God tells us he's going to be like is absolutely unchangeable. Like he doesn't flip-flop and one day act in one way and then the next day do something totally different. He's totally consistent, and he said he's going to be with us in the good times and in the hard times. And I think that it comes for us, we need to come to a place of humility where we're ready, where we are willing to hear, to have God meet us and to hear what he has to say. I think about Rudy in the night. He brought a humility to hearing all those things that God wanted to teach him. And I thought tonight as our response, if you just want to come before the Lord, if you want to, in your seat, if you want to come down the front and you want to come before the Lord and actively put yourself in a posture of humility, of, Lord, I'm really struggling with this, but I need you to meet me. There's going to be time for that. I was also thinking, maybe if the worship team wants to come up, I was also thinking, wherever you are in the room, sharing stories about what God's done when things have been hard are extremely encouraging to go forward. So I was thinking, as you're worshiping, as you're spending time with God, think back, maybe write down some stuff of when have there been hard times and I've learned something profound about God, about the way that he loves me, about the way that he meets me. And as you think of that, write it down, write it on your phone and start sharing that with people. Share it with your life group this week. Share it with the people that you came with. And those things that we learn are things that can 100% help carry us through when we're finding times hard. If you're also just finding it hard at the moment, whatever you're going through, and you just need people to gather around you and pray that you will feel the Lord's peace, you can do that too. Just come down to the front as well for that. But yeah, can I pray? Lord, when I'm in pain, Lord, I love coming to your presence. Lord, I know that it's safe. Lord, I know that you promise that you'll be there. Lord, I pray for every person in this room who's just feeling like what they're going through they can't get out of. They feel suffocated by it. They feel stuck in it. They can't throw it off the way that Rudy described. Lord, I pray that they can do that tonight. Lord, I pray that your presence is just a magnet that just draws them out of that so they can shake off whatever's going on, Lord, and they can sit in your presence and they can know that you're with them in it. And Lord, I pray that I thank you for this perspective that you give us of eternity and how good it's going to be. And Lord, will you just give us more of a glimpse of what that will look like?